Heading into this season, we were told this is going to be a bit of a weaker quarterback class. Well, the ascendant Cam Ward, by way of a small school named Incarnate Word in Texas, by way of Washington State, now a couple years at Miami, has had some different ideas about that. And Cam Ward is kind of following a mini trend we've seen here, especially with that extra year granted to these players with the COVID year, of these fifth-year super seniors that have taken that extra year to play in college and really get better in what we might look back at as kind of a unique window of fifth-year quarterback prospects. And Ward has really risen up, perhaps as much as being a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft and even the number 1 quarterback in this class. And he's going to be a very polarizing prospect because of his ascension and his play style as well that we'll talk about. But with all that, I dove deep into the film, and today I'm going to be talking about what I saw and just how good of a quarterback prospect I think Cam Ward is. Before we do get started, this video releasing means it is officially 2025 NFL draft season, baby. If that gets you excited, if it makes your bones tingle a little bit, please do hit that like button to show your support for my channel. And of course, make sure you subscribe as well. I'll be doing a Shedeur Sanders video just like this as soon as I can. And we, of course, are going to have full coverage of the 25 NFL draft. And I thought it'd be fun to do this by kind of building out Cam Ward's prospect profile here, going through all the different quarterback traits, what grades I gave Cam Ward at these spots, and what I saw while doing that. But before we get into arm strength and accuracy and pocket presence, and all that stuff obviously matters, there is something kind of off the bat that I want to talk about with Cam Ward that I really like, and that is that ascension that we noted on him, climbing from Incarnate Word through Washington State up to Miami, where he's had an awesome season, where he's gotten better every single year. He has, I think, proven that he is passionate about football, that he is a gamer. He has proven that he can develop himself, understand what he needs to get better at, and take those active steps to improve on those things. For as much as things like arm strength and accuracy and those things matter, it is probably more important to know that the guy is going to have that work ethic and drive and understanding of how to get better. Some guys put in the work, but they just aren't very efficient in how they work and aren't always working on the right things. And with Cam Ward, I do think that really matters. And honestly, if you look back at all of the game's elite quarterbacks over the last 20 years, and I'm not saying Cam Ward is necessarily going to reach that level, but almost to a fault, every one of these guys at the top has gone through some form of adversity. You go back to the last kind of crop with Drew Brees, who was written off by the league, Aaron Rodgers, who had to start at Butte Community College, Tom Brady being a 6th-round pick, Phillip Rivers, who was kind of the consolation prize to Eli Manning. Ben Roethlisberger had to come up through a small school at Miami, Ohio. And then you look at the current crop, Patrick Mahomes never won at Texas Tech, was the 10th pick in the draft. Lamar Jackson went 32nd overall. Joe Burrow had to, transfer out of Ohio State, a 3-star recruit that by his 5th year was finally taken seriously. This year, Jaden Daniels, he had a long path to success. There are obviously outliers, right? You've got your CJ Stroud, who's just always been really freaking good. But I love betting on these guys that have had to go through adversity and come out better on the other end. I think there are far more examples of these younger quarterbacks that have never really failed that are much more split in terms of results at the next level. So I obviously can't get into a room and pick his brain and interview him, but I do think the overall kind of football character of Cam Ward looks like a massive, massive plus. And I think that's just as important as any of the stuff we're going to talk about here today, and is a big reason I like Cam Ward ultimately. But let's get into more of the tangible traits here. And I'm going to start with the big one, arm strength. For me, Cam Ward has a B-plus arm. Certainly good enough to play at a high level in the NFL, but there are some knocks in terms of the arm strength. And I think a lot of people, especially if you just watch the first couple of games on Cam Ward from his last season, they might come in a little closer to like B or even B minus, depending on how harsh you're going to be. It's not always perfect with Cam Ward in terms of his raw arm strength and arm talent. especially when you look at his deeper pass attempts. He clearly cannot drive a 45-yard hole shot down the sideline. And there's even some pass-ups on film where he knows he can't hit some of those tough outside throws. He doesn't have what will end up being a top 5, top 10 arm at the NFL level. But that said, he does have good arm strength in other areas of his game, especially ripping those intermediate throws. He can really plant that back foot and drive that thing when he wants to. Very Joe Burrow-esque in that sense, Tom Brady-esque in that sense, where they might not have those Justin Herbert, Josh Allen fastballs deep down the field, but they can absolutely uncork it into critical parts of the field, specifically, again, into the intermediate aspect of the field or on a quick slant on a 3rd and 4 when they have to have it. And in terms of overall distance, he also has exceptional distance. You watch the Cal game, and by the way, it is going to be a battle trying to show you guys film throughout this draft season. I'm going to do my best, but the people who have this film do not want you guys to know anything about these college prospects and hate YouTubers. So we're going to do our best here, but you watch that Cal game twice. In that game, he throws an accurate, I kid you not, 65-yard post dime. Both times were good coverage and were dropped by the wide receiver, but catchable 65-yard posts that, if they weren't perfect passes, might have been picked off or certainly not even close to getting completed. So if he can step into his throw, and he does this thing where he really changes his arm slots a lot, but he kind of sidearms it and really can, if he has a clean platform, he can really get into that throw and push it down the field. Now, a couple things there. Number one, of course, he needs to be able to kind of have that firm base and really wind up for it. He's not, again, these top quarterbacks that he can be on the run or off his back foot and still make that throw 40 yards down the field without stepping into it. Or if he's on the run, he's going to struggle to make a throw like that a little bit more. But the other thing is he does get a lot of air under it, which does actually make it a very catchable ball. But there are going to be situations where, if he wants to throw a ball up the, on a go ball up the sideline, he might want to stick it on his wide receiver a little bit more as opposed to getting all that air under it and allowing time for a potentially faster defensive back to catch up or a rangy free safety to get over. So there's a trade-off with that. He isn't limited in the sense that he can't throw the deep ball, but there are certain throws and certain velocities that just aren't fully available to him. And I do think that contributes to the fact that he just does not have a lot of 40-plus yard completions on the season. On passes 30-plus yards, he completed 6 out of 19 attempts. 5 were registered as overthrows. 4, the defender got their hands on it. 2 were thrown out of bounds. And on 40-plus yard throws, he actually only completed 1 of them. Now, I'll be honest, there were some drops on some of these throws, so it's not all bad, as I described. But those big, huge throws, probably not going to be a big strength of Cam Ward's game, and I think having good, not great arm strength is a big reason for that. But that is obviously going to tie almost directly into what his accuracy scores are. But before I talk about accuracy, if you're a football fan and maybe you want some cheap tickets to go watch your horrible NFL team play a game before the season ends, or if you're going to a primetime matchup for your playoff contender, or maybe you want to go see a concert for the holidays, or are looking for NHL and NBA tickets, which is in season as well, well, SeatGeek, the sponsor for today's video, is the #1 ticketing app out there to make sure you will get the best tickets at the best price. SeatGeek has the best interface. They color code every seat, so just look for the green dots and you're getting the best bang for your buck. They're also really good at showing you images of what your actual seats are going to look like. And speaking from experience, one thing I love about SeatGeek is they make sure you get your tickets right there in the app, so you don't have to jump through email chains and have this stressful pregame scenario where you don't know where your tickets are. They're going to be right there for you in the app. I have happily endorsed SeatGeek as my favorite ticketing app for 5+ years now, but because of that, you may have already used my promo code to save you some money on tickets. Well, because they're great partners, SeatGeek has re-upped my code, and now if you use code TFG10 at checkout, whether you're a returning customer or a new one on SeatGeek, you will save 10% on your next purchase. So that is code TFG10 at checkout on SeatGeek. And most of all, I hope you have a great time wherever you're headed. But let's now talk about a very important trait for the quarterback, and that is accuracy for Cam Ward. And this, I think, is an area that will be a pretty consistent knock or ding on Cam Ward. Not necessarily like a heavy weakness, but he's just not maybe creme de la creme in terms of top 5 quarterback prospects. I think, to use a scouting term, he would have what you describe as accuracy that typically will hit the door, but not the keyhole. Generally, he'll hit his mark and throw catchable passes for his receivers, but he will have some misses in there. And even when he's throwing catchable passes, sometimes it's a little bit behind, a little bit low, a little bit high, sometimes making it a little harder on the wide receiver than it needs to be, and not always setting up his guy for perfect run after catch situations. And that's certainly not something to panic about. It's just not necessarily ideal in the sense of accuracy. Now, I do break up accuracy into really 4 categories because it is so important to evaluate this trait. You have your quick accuracy, which is pretty self-explanatory, your slants, your bubble screens, speed outs, your simple throws. And that's actually, relative to a lot of quarterbacks, Cam Ward isn't amazing at it. Again, he'll throw a slant on a guy's hip pocket instead of out in front of him. He can throw a slant a little bit higher than it needs to be. With quick accuracy, you are being very critical because all of these guys are NFL quarterback prospects, and even at a B-, you're still saying, of course, he can make all the throws, and more often than not, he will. But you're going to grade on a bit of a tighter curve with those types of throws because you obviously expect these guys to be very sharp in that phase of the game. And again, it's just non-spectacular, but nothing you're really worried about in terms of those quick, easier throws. Then intermediate accuracy. Think of the kind of middle triangle of your passing heat map, your intermediate crossing routes, dig routes, your deep outs, and even deeper posts I consider a part of intermediate accuracy, up to 25, 30, 35 yards. This, I think, is where Cam Ward is at his best. He still will have some of those misses that we've described. Again, being a little bit behind. There are throws where he will sail these balls over the middle, and that can really put the ball in harm's way at times where there were a few times where safeties got their hands on footballs because he threw it over the head of a crossing route. So it's not perfect, but I do think relative to the way a lot of quarterbacks throw in this part of the field, there is a larger portion of dimes here than there are to your gaffes and whiffs by Cam Ward. He is, for the most part, really good at hitting guys in stride in this intermediate part of the field. One of his favorite throws as well is a really impressive thing that Cam Ward does. He loves hitting those back shoulder seam balls against cover 3. If they can get the outside corner to be occupied by an outside route and the safety to not collapse on maybe a tight end or a slot wide receiver running up the seam, he throws a really nice back shoulder seam ball. That's a high difficulty NFL throw. That alone might be reflected in his intermediate accuracy being a little bit better than even in the quick game. And then as we get to the advanced accuracy, this to me are going to be your deep outside the numbers throws, and really when you're unleashing it 30, 40 yards down the field. And this is a tougher balance with what we talked about with the arm strength. I do go with a B- here on Cam Ward because, as I described, there are a decent amount of overthrows where he's kind of overcompensating on these deeper throws, especially when he throws to the sideline. He's just not particularly attuned to hitting those guys deeper down the field, and sometimes he'll float it too far towards the sideline as well. So that's where your dings are. But I did want to reflect, like, some of those deep posts and some of those deeper seam balls, really pushing it down the field. He actually does have really good touch, and I wouldn't describe him as an inaccurate deep thrower of the football. He just has some limitations in that regard. And then for your off-platform accuracy, I went with a B- on this one. I was close to doing a C+, but this one was hard because he has made some really incredible throws on the run. That's a big part of his game, as we're going to talk about. And his ability in Scramble drill in general, paired with a lot of the just dimes he throws on the run, is a big part of why you like Cam Ward. But realistically, there are some really inaccurate passes on the run too, a lot of which get him in trouble. there are a lot of times where he attempts throws that his arm just can't cash. And that pairs with the arm strength, of course, but they do lead to inaccurate throws on the run. So that one is very polarizing. I settled on a B- because ultimately I'm not terribly worried about it, but there's some deficiencies there that you do want to note. So overall, he has good accuracy relative to most quarterback prospects. Relative to a top 5 pick, I would say he has solid accuracy and certainly not great overall accuracy. To summarize, you're going to live with the occasional miss, probably 1.5 times a week where he will just miss a throw, and then another 3 or 4 throws in a game where he's throwing catchable passes, but he just makes it a little bit harder on his receiver than it needs to be and doesn't always set him up for perfect run after catch opportunities. And then the last trait in our throwing tools category is much more simple. It is the release of his arm mechanics. I gave Cam Ward an A- here. Really sharp, quick release. Really no criticisms outside of the thing that went from an A to an A- for me is when he does attempt those deep balls, he does really have to wind up and he brings the ball pretty low to really get that torque. And there might be a situation once a year where you've got TJ Watt bending around the edge. He's able to, reach that arm out and end up kind of popping the ball there just as he's kind of naturally bringing it forward. So when he's really unleashing the ball, you might have a small knock on the kind of throwing mechanics, but generally very smooth, very quick, distributes the ball very nicely. Next, we're going to talk about Cam Ward's processing and decision making. This is obviously very critical for the quarterback. I break this up into standard processing and advanced processing. Standard processing is much more about the first read. Does he play on time? Does he hold on to the ball too long? Does he push the ball into coverage when he shouldn't? All within the early timing of the play. Advanced processing is more beyond that first read. How does he see the field? Is he comfortable getting into second and third progressions, going through his reads? And how well does he just kind of process the coverage as safeties are rotating, as the bullets start flying? Is the game too fast for the guy? And this is actually interesting. I actually think Cam Ward is more advanced with the advanced processing side of things than he even is in terms of standard processing. He's not bad at either. I give him a B- for standard processing and a B for advanced processing. But it is those second read plays, the anticipation throws, and how he sees the field in scramble drill and, as things are chaotic and breaking down. That's actually where I walk away very impressed by Cam Ward. And then more of the, the simple structure stuff. Again, he's more than good enough. He plays on time. He doesn't hold on to the ball too long. Generally, he's pretty good at kind of taking what's there when he needs to. If it's 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6, he stays ahead of the chains generally. There are your pass-ups and room for development in terms of processing. It's very hard for a quarterback prospect to get up near the A category here for me. That'd be like Joe Burrow. Generally, these are college prospects that are going to have to develop their processing at the next level, and that's no different with Cam Ward. But I do really want to praise him for the more advanced stuff that he does. A lot of those high-end NFL reads that I think are really going to translate to the next level. Just in terms of going through his pro reads, he consistently makes second read throws where he's looking off his number one on one side of the field and working to that backside dig, working all the way through the field. The 5 years of experience that he's had in college, playing in multiple different systems, obviously, at all these different schools, it's clear he is very comfortable being a pro reads quarterback. But beyond that, he throws with anticipation. That's a big part of the advanced processing. He can recognize and understands safety rotations. I alluded to earlier, some of those back shoulder throws against cover 3. I mean, there's a play where he sees a 12th member of the defense running off towards the sideline. At the snap, as he's doing his drop, looks at the ref, points at it to try to get the flag, but doesn't see the flag, so he has to proceed with the play as he normally would. He then turns to look at the safeties, realizes that a 2-shell safety split rotated into cover 3, and that his favorite throw, that seam ball back shoulder, was going to be there, and then he throws it on time. I mean, there is some real advanced processing going on with Cam Ward. You'll see him let go of some of these throws into the middle of zone defenses with real anticipation, understanding where the holes in these zones are going to be. Now, the reason this isn't an A or an A- is there is a knock here, and this is where a big part of my Jordan Love comp on Cam Ward comes in. He does something that Jordan Love, it's a boon and a boondoggle for him. He loves to assume how zone defenders are going to act and react. And he will let the ball go early, sometimes before they declare what they're going to be. And you will get some ugly looks off of that, where it looks like he threw it right to a defender, or he throws it into a space and the receiver's not there, but the DB is. He likes to be aggressive with his processor, and he's not always perfect with that. So it is something that you're probably always going to have to live with, as I think you're kind of at with Jordan Love. As a Packers fan, like you're cool with him being aggressive because 3 times to 1, he's actually making really impressive reads and really impressive throws. But you got to keep up with that rate and not turn the ball over too much compared to when you're really making those big throws. So that's a main reason this isn't like an A for advanced processing, but there is a lot of high-end quarterback stuff that Cam Ward does that can really get you excited about how he's seeing the field and reading out defenses. Before we get to my next category here, one of my favorites, pocket presence and improvisational skills. I do just want to remind you guys, if you want to get yourself a Christmas present and myself a Christmas present at the same time, I do have a merchandise store. You can get your TFG hoodies, coffee mugs, your size matters not, unique custom hoodies that I put together a couple years ago. That's all over at thatfranchisestore.com. I just wanted to remind you guys that that is out there if you're interested. But let's talk about Cam Ward's best overall trait, and that is his pocket presence and improvisational skills. And this year, I have added 2 categories for pocket presence. This has come from years of watching film and breaking these guys down. I think there's 2 sides to pocket presence that really matter. You've got your pressure management. That's what you do when pressure is there. If your guard gets beat quickly, or if that blitzer comes in unblocked, can you sense it and can you manage and mitigate that pressure? Very important. But the other side to pocket presence that often goes overlooked, because you have to really grind the tape and compare it and contrast it to dozens and hundreds of other quarterbacks that you've watched, it's that more natural pocket feel. Not necessarily what do you do when pressure is there, but what do you do when pressure isn't necessarily there? Can you feel out that space inside the pocket while keeping your eyes downfield and buy time with your feet, whether that's inside or outside the pocket, by naturally feeling the decomposition of the pocket as it breaks down? A lot of quarterbacks have the ability to sense pressure when it is there, but in the case of Cam Ward, he does very much have that elite pocket feel trait. That is one of my favorite things about a Jordan Love, a reason that comp is there. I actually think Geno Smith is remarkably underrated in that category. But this pocket feel is a trait that I have said is a non-negotiable trait for the elite quarterbacks to have, because this is what matters maybe the most on 3rd down when the defense is making things hard. Do you understand when you have time to look for higher percentage looks that are going to move the chains, or are you one of these quarterbacks that just panics, takes a check down, bails out of a clean pocket, and ends up punting on 3rd and 11? It's a big, big difference maker, and that is where I probably end up the highest on Cam Ward, is that pocket feel trait, where I grade him an A. Really, really special in that category. Not only does he feel the rush, knows where it's coming from, but the way he manages it is just so impressive. Whether that means he knows he's got to read, but he needs another 1.5 seconds, and he's got that ability to just drift into the right spot, have those kind of fadeaway moments where he bought enough time. Or if he's got a very clean pocket, he's super comfortable to just hang out, go through his reads, find a high percentage throw down the field. And then as that pocket compresses, if his right tackle gets beat 2 or 3 seconds into the play, he almost always knows where to step up, when to get out. But again, he also has that elite ability to know, actually, that edge rusher came screaming off the edge. I feel the pressure, but it's okay. I just have to take a couple steps up, and my tackle will seal that edge. I can reset and stay comfortable in the pocket. This is a big deal, you guys. This is a trait that I really look for in these quarterbacks. And it doesn't always translate to success, but more often than not, it does at the next level, because not only does it help you convert these third downs and buy time and make these big plays, but I do think having this trait in your back pocket, this eye in the back of your head kind of supernatural trait, it does buy you a level of comfort inside the pocket to not get kind of dejected if you do have your struggles at the next level. And if your processing is a little bit slower coming into the league as a young player, this buys you room for error to make up for some of that stuff and create these bigger play opportunities. So it's a huge deal, and he grades out damn near elite at it. Love that about Cam Ward. And then it's very rare that you would find a guy that has that trait that also can't feel the quick pressure stuff. And he's excellent at that as well. When the blitzer gets in, that's when you really see him do the drifting and stuff, and just knowing how to manage it really well. And he's really good at kind of those, Russell Wilson magic moments. If you think about like the way he can kind of like juke guys out when they come in free, like he is really good at managing pressure when it gets in quickly too. So love the overall pocket presence for Cam Ward. It is by far his most elite trait in my opinion. And then I do have one more trait here in this category that is, picture it as just kind of an overall grade on how good the quarterback is in scramble drill with his improvisational abilities. This factors in athletic ability. Are you a good scrambler? How do you throw on the run? Do you make big throws on the run? Do you know how to get in these situations? It's just an overall grade on scramble drill. And with Cam Ward, I gave him a B+ here, which is actually a lot lower than I think a lot of people would say, because the highs on Cam Ward, again, are an A. A part of this is that pocket presence. He's consistently able to get into scramble drill when he needs to. He's athletic. He has remarkable field vision that ties into some of that stuff we said about the advanced processing. When the bullets start flying, he makes some really impressive throws. He throws down the field that not all quarterbacks would consider are available. And he also has a little bit of that like Mahomes magic, where when he's working towards the sideline and there's someone trying to sack him, he's got a lot of size. He's 6'2", 223. He's a tough guy to get to the ground. He has contact balance. He has really good instincts to kind of buy as much time as he needs to. Again, you just watch the highlights, you would say his improvisational ability should be an A. However, there are a couple knocks that take this from an A down to an A- and then down to a B+. The first one would be, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, but the biggest criticism on Cam Ward actually comes in this category. He does not want to let a play die. And there are some really frustrating hero moments on Cam Ward that the amount of which he makes in the NFL are going to be a big deal in terms of how successful he is. You can have them. This is where the Geno Smith, Jordan Love's comp comes in. You can put your team in jeopardy at times as long as you're playing at a high level otherwise. But if this is happening once a week and in big situations, if you don't understand the situation, which sometimes he's doing these on first downs with the lead in the second half, and we're talking about, flipping the ball to a defender when he's getting sacked, throwing back across his body into double coverage, really, and attempting throws, by the way, that his arm just can't cash. You have to ding him for some of that stuff too. And then the other thing, I kind of just alluded to it, that's another ding here, is the arm talent on the run just isn't sensational. Like I just said, he will attempt throws that his arm can't cash. And there are throws down the field that he knows he can't attempt as well. If he's rolling out and he sees a deep corner 40 yards down the field, sometimes he'll try it and he'll get hurt for it. And other times he'll just be like, yeah, I can't make that throw. Whereas, maybe a truly elite scramble drill guy like a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes would throw and complete. So there are some knocks in terms of the overall picture for improvisational ability, but still very, very impressive in that regard. And then we'll just kind of wrap up with his overall athletic tools and rushing contributions. I think he's a good NFL athlete by modern standards. You go back 15 years ago, you'd say this guy's a great athlete, an elite athlete for the position. But the Cam Wards of the world that can run around and are legitimate threats in the design run game that are a handful to get down, they are much more standard in today's NFL. And, I think Cam Ward, he's got really good acceleration. He's got good speed. He can change directions and all that stuff. But it's nothing I would say is spectacular. If he were to run a 40, I would probably say he's probably like a 4.65 40 type of guy. He probably won't run the 40, but he's got more than enough speed to be a lethal scrambler and even a threat in the design run game. Mix it in once, twice, 3 times a game. Very comparable, I would say, as an athlete to Geno Smith, who's very effective in this category. I do give Cam Ward a lot of credit, though, for his overall kind of running ingenuity. I mentioned the contact balance. That's hard to account for with the categories we're showing in this graphic. That's something that would show up more in the strengths and weaknesses write-up that I do on Cam Ward. But he is a tough-ass dude to get to the ground. He's built like a running back, a big one, 6'2", 223, and he's strong. He's put in time in the weight room and can get off tackle attempts. But he'll spin around you. He'll put on some jukes. He's got legitimate creativity as a runner, so he will be someone that you can factor in the design run game to create some of those running advantages too. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Lamar. He's not Josh Allen. But he's definitely going to be very effective in that category. So overall, man, I like Cam Ward. I was really impressed. I kind of went into it based on what people had said, expecting to not be so high on Cam Ward, maybe to view him as like a late round, first round flyer, maybe more of a high second round. Maybe something like Malik Willis was hyped up to be. That's kind of what I was expecting. That's nowhere close to where I came in on Cam Ward. In fact, if you compare Cam Ward to last year's QB class, evaluating quarterbacks is hard, right? But I actually have a higher grade right now, and this can change over the course of the process. I actually have a higher grade right now than I did on Jaden Daniels, both with kind of top 10 first round grades. I've actually got Ward a little bit higher than Jaden and higher than Penix, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix as well. So this to me is a legitimate high upside, easy first round caliber quarterback prospect that if I'm the Giants or I'm the Raiders, I'm certainly comfortable taking first. Would I prefer to have a Caleb Williams sitting there or a Joe Burrow? Yes, of course, but not every draft class is like that. Sometimes you do have to push these guys up the board a little bit relative to what you're looking at that year, because you never know when you're going to be picking that high. So he's not the perfect top 3, top 5 pick, but I do think a team will probably end up doing that inside the top 5, taking Cam Ward, and it's going to be kind of like, very close grade to Jaden Daniels last year. Again, I should have been higher on Jaden Daniels, but I was still comfortable with the team taking him inside the top 10 because you got to get a quarterback, right? So I that's kind of where I'm at with Cam Ward. I will say, just kind of last off, just based on some of the throws he makes, these deep crossers, some of the improv stuff he does, some of the stuff you can do with him in the run game, I do think he's a great fit for a Brian Daboll offense. And I haven't watched Shedeur Sanders yet. I'm trying to just avoid comparing Cam and Shedeur right now because I just haven't watched Shedeur yet. I don't know who I'm going to like more, but I would not be surprised at all if Brian Daboll watched Cam Ward and said, I can work with that. And I really think he can. There is a lot of high upside stuff here, some stuff to clean up, some deficiencies for sure as we broke down, but I was really impressed. I like Cam Ward, excited to see how this all turns out, as with any quarterback prospect. So I hope you guys enjoyed this format. I think it's an easy way to kind of cover most of our bases here. It's always going to be tough in any video to cover every single note I have on Cam Ward. I think we got pretty damn close. I do want to remind you guys, with draft season here, this is the perfect time to get signed up over on my Patreon, where you can get the full TFG Draft Insider package. You will get my full write-up on Cam Ward with detailed strengths and weaknesses, kind of what you're seeing in the graphic in this video, with the different grades for all of the different traits and pro comps and all that stuff. You will get this picture for hundreds and hundreds of prospects this year. I'm also going to be doing exclusive film breakdowns over there on Patreon in the weeks leading up to the draft. I do exclusive 7-round mock drafts for all 32 teams. So if you enjoy my draft content, just $10 a month over the next 4 months or so will get you the whole package, and of course be a huge support to my channel, especially as I'm envisioning, unfortunately, a lot of these videos getting demonetized. So even if you're not watching the exclusive content, I would really appreciate if you guys should show your love that way for the channel. But we are out of here. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with the eval on Cam Ward? Am I too high on him? Am I too low on him? Definitely let me know. Content is going to slow down over the next couple of weeks as I am moving back to Minnesota, and then we're going to have the holidays. But you can definitely look forward to a Shedeur Sanders video in an identical format within the next month to play it safe. Hopefully, 3 weeks or so. And I'll have some other stuff as well in between there, non-draft related. We still got to talk about the NFL, but that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.